Hey there, guys and gals. This is Chris with Ignited by Nature, and today I'm going to be talking about the Chilkoot series by Stone Glacier. Specifically, we're going to be looking at the Chilkoot 0 degree sleeping bag, the Chilkoot 15-degree sleeping bag, and the Chilkoot 32-degree quilt. These are all great options and they work great in different situations. We're going to go ahead and dive deep into these Chilkoots and see which one would be best for you. Now that we finished with the intro, I did want to mention real quick that these bags all come with a 30-day money back guarantee, a lifetime limited warranty, and they also come with a stuff sack and a storage sack. So now that we mentioned that real quick, let's go ahead and dive into the Chilkoot 0 degree bag. Okay, so in front of me, I have the Chilkoot 0 degree bag by Stone Glacier. This bag is rated up to a person that's 6 foot 5 inches, and it weighs 2 pounds 10 ounces, which is pretty light for a 0 degree bag. This bag is also made out of 850 Hyperdry down. Hyperdry is just a brand, but basically this is a hydrophobic down. So if you were to get it wet, it would dry faster than normal downs, and you do have some water resistance there. Another thing I really like about this bag is it has a limit rating of 0 degrees and a comfort rating of 14 degrees. Now, what is a limit and a comfort rating, you ask? A limit and a comfort rating are part of the ISO 23537 rating, and it's a standardized rating that companies got together and made so that people like us who are interested in knowing the actual limit rating or having a rough idea of what their bag would be capable of can do that in a standardized way. And so it's a standardized testing method to test the abilities of your bag. Now, it's not exactly bulletproof, but it is a standardized method that you can use to help you decide what you need. But to really gauge the bag, you're going to have to test it out in the field. The best way to do that is to buy it and test it out. But in general, you can get a great idea of what a bag's going to be capable of by looking at the ISO 23537 rating. So since we talked a little bit about the ISO rating, we can go ahead and go over that ISO 23537 real quick, specifically the comfort and the limit rating. The higher of the two ratings is going to be the comfort rating, and the comfort rating is based off the metabolic rate of a female that is 5'3" and 135 pounds. So with that being said, this bag has a comfort rating of 14 degrees, and I'm a 6 foot male. I think that, I would be somewhere below that, but the comfort rating is based off the metabolic rate of a female. So take that into consideration when you're looking at a comfort rating if you're a male. Next, let's talk about the limit rating. The limit rating for this bag is 0 degrees, and the limit rating for the ISO 23537 is tested by using the metabolic rate of a male in the curled up position sleeping normally. And so with that being taken into consideration, it is 0 degrees. And they use mannequins to test this, by the way. So it's not actual people testing this. So you also got to take that into consideration. But the mannequins are in a controlled environment and they're hooked up to thermostats. So it is a standardized method of testing that, we can use to assess our sleeping bags. Now, with that being said, like I said, I'm 6 foot and I weigh 185 pounds on a good day. So I would be somewhere in between the limit and the comfort rating. Now, with all that being said, I did test this bag out to 6 degrees and I slept very comfortably, even with a 5 inch gap, because this bag goes up to 6 foot 5 inches, but they don't make smaller bags. So if you're a shorter guy or gal, you're going to have to, just take that into consideration. Even with that 5 inches of air gap, I definitely didn't have any cold issues. I thought sleeping down to 6 degrees. I haven't taken it lower. If you want to, you can. Basically, with this bag, I just slept in thermals. And then I also had my Furnace 350 GSM merino wool jacket on too. So that's what I slept in. And I stayed plenty warm down to 6 degrees. Now, with all that being said, some of the extra features of this bag that I haven't mentioned so far is the no stick zipper. And I really like the zipper. It works pretty well. You can access it from the outside and the inside. And I haven't had any issues with zipping up the actual bag. So that's very nice because if you used bags before, sometimes that is an issue. Another cool feature to this bag is the vertical baffled construction. So this basically allows you to move the down up and down depending on if there's any cold spots. You can move the down around, and that's really nice. Also, this bag is not your traditional mummy bag. It has a wider set to it, and so that you can really move around in this bag, and that's actually really nice. It's kind of more similar to a quilt and not necessarily a mummy. So at the shoulders, you have 32 inches of play, and at the width of the bag or the hips, you have 24 inches, and then it has an 18-inch articulated foot box. And all the articulated foot box means is that you can move it up and down, and you have freedom of movement with this foot box. So that's very nice as well. And then on the inside of the bag, you also have a magnetic collar, and that magnetic collar basically allows you to cinch up your neck, and it creates a draft collar for your neck so that the draft can't get in below your bag. After using this bag for about a year off and on, I found that it came undone pretty easily, especially when I'm moving around in my sleep. And I would have rather had a button, but the idea and the concept of it was pretty nice. But I just found that oftentimes it wasn't really working that great. So the fact that the magnetic draft collar doesn't always work isn't a game changer, but it's something I did want to mention. I would have rather seen it be a button up, but the idea was pretty cool. The hood is also an articulating hood, and you can cinch it down if it is cold, so you have that ability, but you can also leave it wide. And I feel like compared to other mummy bags, you have a lot of room to move around, and so I really appreciate that as well. Another cool feature about this bag that I wanted to bring up is that it does stuff into an 8.5-inch by 17-inch stuff sack. So you can stuff this bag down pretty small for its size. And I just wanted to mention that as well. If we were going to talk about some of the pros of this bag, I would say that it's relatively lightweight for a 0-degree bag. It has a pretty accurate limit and comfort rating. And then the zipper is pretty awesome. I like how it doesn't snag. And I also like the articulated foot box. It really gives you a lot of room to move around, and it doesn't make you feel like you're in a coffin like traditional mummy bags. Some of the cons of this bag would be the neck baffle. And then I also didn't like how they only have one size, and that size is really meant for a taller person. But if you're a taller person, this bag is going to be a great option for you. Now that we finished up talking about the 0-degree Chilkoot, let's go ahead and talk about the 15-degree Chilkoot. This bag is going to have a lot of the same features as the 0-degree that we talked about, but it's going to pack down smaller, and it's going to have a lighter weight. So this bag comes with a stuff sack that packs down to 7 by 15 inches versus the Chilkoot Zero packs to 8.5 inches by 17.5 inches. So it's a little bit smaller of a pack size. And then also this bag is only 2 pounds 3 ounces versus this bag is 2 pounds 10 ounces. So you're saving 7 ounces there by going with the 15-degree bag. Since we already talked about the ISO 23537, I'm not going to go into the details on how everything is measured again, but I will say that the limit rating for this bag is 8 degrees, and the comfort rating for this bag is 21 degrees. So I find that somewhere in the middle is pretty good for me when I'm using the ISO rating on bags, and it seems to work pretty well. So I tested this bag down to 10 degrees, and I slept very comfortably. I didn't have any issues. And like I mentioned before, all I wore was my long johns, and then I wore my First Light Merino Furnace hoodie, which is a 350 GSM hoodie, which is pretty warm. I really like the articulated foot box on this bag, and the 0-degree bag also has it as well. I feel like this is not like your traditional mummy. You have a lot more room to move around, and even with that 5-inch gap, since I'm 6 foot, I still felt plenty warm, and I didn't feel like I had too bad of an air gap. Like the 0-degree bag, I really didn't like the magnetic neck baffle. I wish it would have been button. I just felt like, moving around a lot in my sleep, or if I moved around a little bit, that magnetic neck baffle would come off. But it wasn't a deal breaker. I still stayed plenty warm because I'm able to cinch up this hood and really get a tight fit around my head if it is really cold. But with that also being said, you also had a lot of room to move around, and your feet could actually move and flex. That's why it's an articulated foot box. and it's not like a traditional mummy bag foot box where your feet kind of just feel like they can't move at all. And with that being said, I really appreciate that about these Chilkoot bags. It's the fact that they provide an articulated foot box that allows you to move your feet around and it doesn't feel like a traditional mummy bag. Another feature that I liked is the 15-degree bag is just as wide. It has the same dimensions as a 0-degree bag. It just has less weight and it has less down in it. So this bag has 22.4 ounces of down versus 29.1, and they're both an 850 fill power. It's that hyper dry down, which is basically just the brand of down, and you can just know that it's hydrophobic and it will wick water. Both the Chilkoot 15 and the 0 have a differential cut, which just essentially means that the inside lining does not stretch, but the outside lining does stretch, and this ensures that your down can expand and keep you warm when it's cold. So that's a nice feature. And then you also get 32 inches of shoulder width, and then 24 inches of hip width, and then 18 inches at the foot box, just like the 0-degree. So you got a lot of room for movement, but it still keeps you plenty warm. And like I said, I've tested these for a year, so I feel comfortable saying that down to 10 degrees, this bag works very well. And I tested the 0-degree down to 6, and it works very well. So they're great bags. I highly recommend them, especially if you're a bigger guy or gal, so meaning that you're tall and maybe you're a little bit more hefty. This bag is going to fit you very nice. Actually, my buddy Michael, 6'5", and he's actually buying a Chilkoot 0-degree. He tried it out. He really liked it. And so that's the bag that he's going to buy, and it fits him well being 6'5". Also, I know I mentioned this when I was talking about the 0-degree bag, but the Chilkoot 15 also does have vertical baffles stitched in. So meaning that you can move the down up and down depending on if you have any cold spots. You can move that down around and it ensures that you can stay warm. So that's a very nice little concept, is to provide vertical baffles that allow you to move the down around. I really appreciate that. One thing that I wanted to mention before we go into the pros and cons of the 15-degree bag, because I don't think I mentioned it with the 0-degree bag, is that the 15-degree and the 0-degree have a 15 denier Pertex Quantum shell. Basically, Pertex Quantum is just a fancy way of saying polyester. It's just a brand, but these have a polyester shell. Polyester is not as durable as nylon, but it's a lot better at wicking moisture. So it's a great option to pair with a down bag, and I'm really glad they went with a polyester fabric. 15 denier is just the weight or the thickness of the material. So a 10 denier is lighter than 15, and it's going to probably rip easier. And then a 20 is heavier than 15, and it's probably going to be a little bit more durable. But I just wanted to mention that both the 0 right over here and the 15 have a 15 denier Pertex Quantum shell. And I don't think I mentioned that. Now that we've gone over all the features of the 15-degree bag, let's just talk about the pros and cons real quick. There aren't too many pros over the 0-degree besides the fact that it's lighter and that it packs down a little bit smaller. So as I mentioned, this one's 2 pounds 3 ounces versus 2 pounds 10 ounces, and then this one packs down to 7 by 15 inches versus the 0 packs down to 8.5 by 17.5 inches. So it's just a little bit smaller. Another pro would be that this bag is going to be more versatile versus the 0-degree. You're not going to be able to use it in as many climates. I think with the 15, you can get away with using this in warmer weather. And then I guess the one con of this bag is that the limit and comfort rating are a little bit higher than the 0-degree. So this bag is not going to be able to be used in colder weather unless you really layer up. Versus the 0-degree bag, it has a limit and comfort rating of 14 degrees for the comfort and 0 degrees for the limit. And then the limit rating for this one is 8 degrees, and then the comfort rating is 21. So this one's going to be more versatile overall, but you're not going to be able to take it into those lower temperatures. So that would be the one con. Okie dokie, artichoke. Sorry, that was really cheesy, but me and my daughter have been watching a lot of VeggieTales, and I just had that stuck in my head, so I said it. Okay, so we're done with that. Now that we finished up with the 15-degree Chilkoot, let's go ahead and talk about the 32-degree quilt. Stay with me. Alrighty, so we talked about the Chilkoot 0-degree and the Chilkoot 15. Now we're going to talk about the Chilkoot 32-degree quilt. Now, I would talk about the ISO 23537, but there is no ISO rating for quilts, so keep that in mind when you are doing research on quilts. There actually is no rating. You got to rely on the actual company and pretty much call them and see how they're filling their quilts, what kind of down ratios they're using, or how many ounces of down they're using, because you really want to know that information. And since there's no standardized testing for quilts, you got to take that into consideration. With that being said, I did call Stone Glacier because on their website, they really don't have any information on the limit and comfort rating, because there is no limit or comfort rating for quilts. So I called them directly. They said that the 32-degree rating that they have on this quilt is based off a limit rating, and that's just based off of the ISO testing that they did for the sleeping bags. They added that much down into this bag. So this bag weighs 1 pound, 6.6 ounces. So it's a really lightweight option for you. So knowing that this is a 32-degree quilt and that's a limit rating, it's kind of funny because I've actually seen people reviewing this bag, taking it down to 20 or 15 degrees and saying, oh, I slept great. But, I took this bag down to 28 degrees and I found that I was pretty cold. And like I said, I wore my standard testing gear. So I was wearing long johns, a merino 350 GSM top by First Light, and, your traditional socks and all that stuff. And I really felt cold. I had to put on a puffy. I had to put on, another pair of pants. I didn't put on puffy pants, but I did put on an actual pair of pants to stay warm at 28 degrees. So I feel like 28 degrees on this bag was the limit. And I would say I was more comfortable sleeping at anything above 32 degrees. So I just wanted to mention that because I did test this bag below 32 degrees, but my experiences weren't great. So I would definitely say that this is more of a summer bag or maybe early September. But once you start getting into those cold temperature drops, I wouldn't pack this bag unless you're going to pack extra clothing. Okay, so we touched on everything I wanted to about the limit and comfort rating of quilts, and basically it doesn't exist for quilts, so we can just kind of toss that out, and basically you want to do your own research with that company if you're looking at a specific brand. Now, let's talk about the actual feature of this quilt. So this quilt is lightweight, so if you're looking for a lightweight quilt that will work in summertime and probably during early fall season, so probably mid-September, you could use this quilt. Like I said, it didn't do well in under 32 degrees, and I felt more comfortable when I was sleeping above 32 degrees in this quilt. But if you want to pack extra puffies, you could probably get away with the lower temperature. But like I said, at 28 degrees, I was pretty cold and I had to put on layers. Now, with that being said, this quilt does have the same construction for the most part as the Chilkoot 0 and 15. It does have a vertical baffled construction that allows you to move the down up and down if you have any cold spots. The difference between a quilt and a sleeping bag is that you don't have a head cover and you don't have a bottom to the quilt, because you're essentially relying on your sleeping pad for your quilt. A sleeping pad plays a major part into how you sleep at night and how your body regulates heat. So when you're picking out a sleeping bag, you also want to pick out a sleeping pad to match the sleeping bag or quilt. With all that being said, when you're picking out a sleeping bag or quilt, you really need to also do some research into sleeping pads, because sleeping pads are important when you are wanting to retain warmth. So anything that's 4.5 or below is typically a 3-season, and I would say that you could get away into mid-October with a 4.5 R value. But once you start dipping into those cold temperatures, you're really going to want to get like a R value above 4.5, so 6 to 8.5 I think is what's out right now, and those are going to be your colder weather sleeping pads. The reason I'm talking about sleeping pads or spending a little bit of time on those is because it's really important to pick a good sleeping pad if you're going to go with a quilt like this. So for me, I tested this quilt with the Thermarest Neo Air X Therm NXT, which has an R value of 7.5, and then I also used the Nemo Extreme Conditions sleeping pad that just came out this year, and that has an R value of 8.5. So either of those are going to work great if you're going to use a quilt into colder conditions. But honestly, I would not use this quilt in anything below 32 because I just felt like I was very uncomfortable. So stick to 32 and above with this quilt and you'll be fine. I think this would be a great summer quilt and then also a great early season hunting quilt. So some of the features of this quilt include the vertical baffles that we talked about. You have a 16-inch articulated foot box on this one. And then another feature that you have with this quilt, if we flip it around, is the magnetic neck baffle system. And then you also have a button option for that neck baffle, which I really appreciate. As I mentioned earlier with the 0 and the 15, the magnetic baffle did not work. So I really like having the button up neck baffle. And that ensures that this doesn't fall apart, and it helps me retain warmth. And that's important when you're using a quilt, because if it is cold, you really want to cinch everything down so that you stay warm. And for me, I'm also going to pair this quilt with a balaclava if it's really cold, and that's going to keep my head warm. And then I just throw my puffy hood over that balaclava and I stay plenty of warm. Another benefit of going with a quilt is that it gives you more room to move around, especially if you're a side sleeper. You have a lot of room for movement. I would also say that if you're going to go with a quilt, I would go with a regular wide or large wide sleeping pad, depending on your size, just because if you get a mummy style sleeping pad, your arms are going to hang off and it's going to be really uncomfortable and it's going to be harder to stay warm. So with a quilt, you definitely want to go with a regular wide pad. But I did want to say that this quilt gives you more freedom of movement, and it's just a better option all around. Another thing I really appreciate that this quilt has over other quilts is that it has 4 tie downs. 2 of the tie downs are used to tie directly to your pad, and the other 2 are used to cinch down your quilt. So not only can you cinch the quilt down to the pad, but then you also have the versatility of the other 2 straps to kind of adjust or regulate the temperature flow, or the flow of air coming into the quilt. And I really appreciate that, because when it is warmer out, you can really open this quilt up, but when it is cold, you can really cinch it down. And these side baffles really cinch down to the side of the sleeping pad and ensure that you stay warm. But like I said, the only downside to this quilt is that there's really not enough down to keep you insulated below 32 degrees. There's actually only 12 ounces of down in this quilt, compared to the 22.4 ounces in the 15 and the 29.1 in the 0. With that being said, this quilt also uses 850 fill power as far as down, and it's a hyper dry down, so it's moisture wicking, but it only uses 12 ounces of that down, and I think they could have used more, but you would have been gaining weight, and I think they're really trying to make a lightweight and efficient quilt. And like I said, this is a great 3-season quilt. I would definitely use this in spring, summer, and fall. But once the temperatures start dropping below 32 degrees, I would opt for one of these other Chilkoots or a different quilt. So I think I pretty much covered everything that I wanted to on the Chilkoot 32 degree. I would say that the pros of the Chilkoot 32 degree are it's extremely lightweight. It's 1 pound, 6.6 ounces. It packs down extremely small. I really appreciate how small this packs down. It has a 15 denier Pertex Quantum shell, which basically Pertex Quantum is just a brand, but it has a polyester shell, so it's going to wick moisture very good. Some of the cons of this bag would be that it's not a true 32 degree bag. I feel like that at 32 degrees, I really had to put on some layers to stay warm. If I was going to use this bag in above 32 degree weather, it's a great bag. I also didn't like the neck baffle, but I did appreciate that this quilt provided a button baffle for the neck. And then, yeah, I would say other than that, this quilt is very well made. I would say that the only downside would be that it's not a true 32 degree quilt. Now that we've gone over the whole Chilkoot series, I can safely say that this is a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this video and that it was informative. And if you like this video and you want more content like this, please like and subscribe to my channel. And also, let me know what you think about the Chilkoot series. What have you used? Leave a comment below, and I'd love to hear your feedback. With that being said, my name is Chris with Ignited by Nature, and thank you so much for watching this video. Until next time, guys and gals.